Your brain builds insulation that determines your inner reality. Think of myelin like a superconductor coating on ancient cables. It doesn't just speed up signals, it forces them into perfect alignment across vast tracts of white matter. That structural coherence is what lets us feel unified, not fragmented chaos. The density and organization of this sheath acts as the physical governor for your experience, the real substrate of selfhood itself. We are looking at how pure architecture dictates phenomenal resonance within the nervous system's quiet machinery.
The architecture itself is where the mystery resolves. We move beyond just speed and coherence into what this dense organization supports intrinsically. Think of that highly tuned white matter as a self-organizing antenna array, not merely wiring. It creates an environment, a specific temporal geometry, that allows for what philosophy terms unified knowing, or Brahman in ancient texts. Biologically speaking, it's the deep integration across hierarchical neural firing patterns. That structure is how localized states become truly connected, giving rise to something that feels like a singular self rather than just scattered pulses of electricity. And that integrated whole is still just potential until you factor in timing. We shift focus now to volition itself. It turns out the precise way myelination structures those pathways dictates when things happen at all. Imagine a dimmer switch controlling an absolute cutoff. That temporal gating, governed by how neatly insulated your axons are, determines the latency of every action propagating downstream from that initial firing event. A subtle difference in insulation integrity can decide whether a thought ripples outward or just fizzles inside the system, which means something nobody expected for genuine free agency when structure itself sets the clock.
But that precise timing mechanism only dictates effect propagation from initial events, right? What happens when those local structures maintain their own distinct patterns even within a unified system? The deep organization supporting individual states, what some call Atman in older frameworks, isn't just incidental noise. It's built into the insulation interface itself. Think of tiny microclimates inside your white matter pathways, each one setting its own unique rhythm while remaining connected to the whole orchestra. Some researchers claim that external stimuli override this intrinsic patterning entirely. What do you think about studies showing localized reorganization dictates function? We need to see how these inherent architectures actually become the source code for what we take as pure conscious experience next.
The system isn't just patterned, there is an inherent resonance baked into how different structures speak to each other. Consider a perfectly tuned orchestra where every section maintains its unique internal tempo, yet all remain bound by the same master conductor. That intrinsic organizational density dictates not just selfhood, but the very depth of experienced unity, what researchers map as phenomenal coherence. We find evidence that even when external forces try to push signals through, this deep architectural integrity fights back, sustaining an inner rhythm. But what determines which specific rhythms gain precedence? The answer lies in a boundary interface we haven't seen yet.
But what governs that selection of internal rhythms? What forces one pattern to become dominant over another, even within this resilient architecture we discussed? It appears the secret isn't just in the insulation itself, but at the microscopic junction where axon meets its surrounding support cells. Think about fine-tuning an antique radio receiver. You can adjust the tuning knob for many frequencies, but there's a precise point of calibration that dictates which signal cuts through the static and registers as reality to your awareness. This boundary interaction, how those different structural zones interface with each other, is what determines precedence. It reveals something far deeper about where our subjective boundaries actually reside within the tissue itself. The architecture governs precedence, that much is clear from how those structural zones meet. But consider this counterpoint. What if the insulation itself creates an intrinsic drive toward integration? What we previously established as just timing and boundary setting might actually be a consequence of something deeper residing within the material structure itself, a pressure towards unified coherence. Imagine every single axon pathway not just following rules, but actively seeking its most resonant configuration with its neighbors across that whole tract. This suggests the inherent bias in white matter organization is toward complete systemic knowing. It challenges everything we thought about how individual units maintain their identity against a larger pattern of connectivity.
We accepted that structure pushes toward a whole, unified system knowing. But what if this intrinsic drive manifests as something specific, a fundamental need within the tissue itself? Think of it like magnetism. Even when individual parts are moving freely, there is an unavoidable pull towards alignment across the entire material. This tendency for integrated information deepens into how we define individuality versus unity. Some researchers call this endogenous architectonics. That inherent patterning acts as a self-coding mechanism right inside your white matter. It suggests our conscious identity isn't something placed on top of the structure. It is woven from its very grain. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com.
The verdict settles here. We saw architecture dictates resonance, and that self-coding nature woven into the white matter grain is undeniable fact. But this entire intricate machine, this whole system of integrated knowing, must actually translate something usable for us. The takeaway isn't just recognizing how organized your structure feels. It's understanding that by seeking specific patterns of high internal connectivity in your own thought processes, you are participating directly with the engine itself. Treat quiet focus not as downtime, but as maintenance on the foundational wiring. That persistent search for deeper coherence within yourself is the only actionable command available to us right now. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com.